The moment the town hall debate began in Manchester, New Hampshire, the air was already electric with tension. The stage was framed in deep blues and reds, the spotlight casting sharp shadows behind the two political firebrands standing at their podiums. Jasmine Crockett, a razor-sharp legal mind and sitting congresswoman from Texas, stood poised and calm in a navy pantsuit. Across from her, Karoline Leavitt, the fiery former Trump White House staffer and rising Republican star, wore a smirk and a white blazer that practically gleamed under the lights. The moderator had barely finished the first question on voting rights when Karoline let out a sharp, dismissive laugh that cut through the auditorium like glass breaking. "Congresswoman Crockett," Karoline said, voice dripping with condescension, "I understand you love to give your little lectures on democracy, but this is New Hampshire, not Washington, D.C. We don't need moral sermons from someone who probably thinks the Constitution was written on TikTok." Laughter rippled through the right-leaning part of the audience. Jasmine didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly, then leaned into the mic, her voice velvet but edged with steel. "I find it telling, Karoline, that you think civic education is something to mock. Maybe if more people respected the Constitution beyond using it as a campaign prop, our democracy wouldn't be in such a fragile state." The moderator raised his hand to interject, but the damage was already done. Karoline's laughter had drawn first blood, and Jasmine's eyes had already turned from calm to cutting. Karoline's next attack came fast, a barrage of phrases meant to provoke. Border chaos, radical leftist, woke indoctrination, and finally, race card politics. She leaned forward like a boxer smelling an opening. "Let's talk about your record, Jasmine," she said, almost daring her. "You support criminal justice reform that releases violent offenders, you fight for voting access while ignoring voter fraud, and you oppose parental rights in education. Why? Because your party thinks people are too dumb to think for themselves, unless they vote blue." Jasmine's jaw tensed, but she didn't rush her response. She let the silence stretch, a seasoned trial attorney who knew when silence could hang heavier than words. Finally, she stepped forward from the podium, her voice steady but unmistakably powerful. "You want to talk records? Let's do it. I've fought for bail reform because our system jails poor people for being poor, not dangerous. I fight for voting rights because we've seen black grandmothers purged from voter rolls for typos. And I oppose parental censorship of education because kids deserve to learn history, not fantasy." The crowd buzzed, but Jasmine didn't let up. "And if you're really concerned about thinking for themselves, Karoline, maybe you should start by thinking for yourself instead of echoing every bullet point from a Fox News chyron." Karoline's smile cracked, and the moderator turned toward the next question, but the dynamic had shifted. Jasmine had taken the bait and turned it into a blade. The third question came like a hammer. "Do you believe America is systemically racist?" Karoline pounced before Jasmine could speak. "Absolutely not," she said with smug certainty. "America gave us the opportunity to be here. The only system oppressing people today is the progressive elite who want to divide us by skin color. People like Jasmine Crockett, who build their careers playing victim, make money convincing others they're oppressed. But the truth is, they just want power through pity." The silence after her answer was thick and jagged. Jasmine didn't move for a second. Then she stepped from behind her podium again, her voice now lower, but each syllable unmistakably deliberate. "I don't build my career on pity, Karoline. I built it on facts. Facts like redlining. Facts like unequal sentencing laws. Facts like black women dying in childbirth at 3 times the rate of white women. I didn't make that up, and I didn't inherit a political pathway paved by privilege. I earned my seat, earned it by being smarter, tougher, and louder than the noise, meant to drown out people who look like me." She paused. "And if you think systemic racism doesn't exist, maybe it's because you benefit from the system the way it is." A gasp swept across the hall. Karoline opened her mouth, then closed it. The moderator, visibly shaken by the escalating tone, tried to move on, but the audience, half stunned, half galvanized, was still catching up. Jasmine had turned the table completely, not with a roar, but with surgical calm that sliced deeper than any insult. As the debate neared its close, the moderator threw a final wild card question. In one sentence, tell us what America needs most right now. Karoline, flustered but trying to reclaim footing, said, America needs courage to fight against the radical left and restore traditional values. Her answer landed flat. Then came Jasmine, stepping forward, the weight of the night behind her, her voice wrapping around the crowd like a solemn anthem. America needs truth and the strength to face it, even when it makes us uncomfortable. The crowd erupted, not in chaos, but in something deeper. Reverent silence, followed by rising applause. The moderator began closing statements, but before Karoline could even begin hers, an elderly man in a Vietnam veteran hat stood up near the back. He didn't say a word. He just saluted Jasmine Crockett. Cameras caught it instantly. Karoline turned toward the man, confused, but the damage was done. The moment would go viral in minutes. Jasmine turned to leave the stage, pausing just long enough to glance over her shoulder. Next time, Karoline, bring an argument instead of a laugh track. She walked off without waiting for a response. Karoline stood frozen, microphone in hand, words caught somewhere between fury and disbelief. The audience didn't wait for closing remarks. They followed Jasmine out. Some, literally, others with their eyes. And just like that, the debate ended not with a handshake, but with a walkaway so powerful, even Karoline's allies stayed seated. The next morning, the media landscape was ablaze. Every major outlet from CNN to local New Hampshire radio stations replayed Jasmine Crockett's walk-off, the veteran's silent salute, and Karoline Leavitt's stunned silence on a continuous loop. Hashtags like Shout Jasmine Shutdown and Veteran Salutes Truth were trending globally. Conservative pundits tried desperately to reframe the moment as disrespectful grandstanding, but it wasn't landing. Even some of Karoline's usual allies were unusually quiet. By noon, Jasmine found herself in a green room at MSNBC's Manhattan studio, sipping coffee while watching a segment on Fox, where Karoline was calling her a manipulative radical trying to shame America into submission. Jasmine's aide, a young woman named Tessa, handed her a tablet. "They're baiting you to respond," she said. "Karoline just challenged you to appear with her again, live, unmoderated, tonight on Hannity." Jasmine raised an eyebrow, lips curving into a knowing smile. "She really thinks she wants that smoke?" Tessa hesitated. "We could decline. You already won." But Jasmine shook her head. "No. She needs to be shown that silence isn't strength. It's preparation. Tell Hannity we're coming, but we're setting the terms." She stood, smooth as silk, and looked directly into the mirror. "Let her bring fire. I'll bring the truth and gasoline." That evening, the tension in the Hannity studio was so thick you could slice it with a gavel. Karoline arrived first, makeup flawless, but eyes darting with nervous energy. She clearly hadn't expected her offhand mockery to become a viral humiliation. Jasmine entered moments later, calm, collected, and carrying a leather folder of notes. Sean Hannity, knowing the ratings gold he sat on, wasted no time. "Ladies," he said, "this isn't about sound bites. This is a real conversation. Let's start with the obvious. Karoline, why'd you laugh?" Karoline scoffed, defensive right out the gate. "Because Jasmine represents a party that's so far removed from reality it's laughable. She thinks everything is oppression, everything is racism, when real Americans are worried about inflation, crime, and gas prices." Jasmine turned to her, not with anger, but surgical clarity. "You laughed, Karoline, because deep down you think lived experience is a joke. But my constituents don't laugh when they're denied loans because of their zip code. They don't laugh when they bury their sons over traffic stops. You want to talk crime? Let's talk about the systemic policies that created the environments where crime grows, and how your policies ignore it until it spills into suburbia. Hannity tried to interject, but the studio was locked on the rising tension between the two women, like a match hovering over gasoline. Karoline attempted to pivot, trying to paint Jasmine as a radical. You support BLM, defunding police, open. Borders. But Jasmine cut her off with a calm, chilling precision. I support accountability. I support reallocation of bloated budgets to mental health, housing, and education, things that prevent crime. And I don't support open borders. I support humane immigration policy. The fact that you equate decency with chaos says more about your lens than my platform. The room shifted. Even Hannity leaned back, sensing the tide. Karoline was flustered now, her fallback playbook collapsing under the weight of unyielding clarity. You're twisting everything, she snapped. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. No, Karoline,